Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode. Hey everyone, is the quality and amount of sleep you get affecting your sex life? The answer is yes to this question. And basically the amount of sleep and the amount of quality sleep that you get is affecting your sex life by either improving it or by diminishing that. And so, we've been thinking about this topic because, we recently just had our baby come home from the hospital. And so we've realized our sleep quality has drastically decreased. And, we're trying to keep our sex life on par where it was. And so one of the things that clicked for us was, well, these two things could be connected. So we kind of started doing some research on it and realized there is a connection. So we wanted to bring that to you too, because it's not just about if you have a new baby at home, it could be lots of other things that could be making you tired that could play into a diminished quality of sex life. And so studies show that adults should be getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night.
Yeah, what's quality though?
Right.
I'm like, oh, here I'm falling asleep. We're up, through the night. So I might be in bed 7 hours, but not sleeping a solid 7 hours or quality. I've heard couples who watch TV at night and then just like fall asleep on the couch, and maybe eventually they'll move to their bed. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's just like a nap on the couch and then a nap in their bed, and it's not this full quality of sleep through the night. So lots of factors there of how it could not be quality.
Yeah, you could be getting 8 hours of sleep each night in, a 3-hour stretch, a 3-hour stretch, and a 2-hour stretch. But because of those interruptions, it may not be good quality sleep. And, that quality can be caused by a new baby at home. It can be caused by the fact that maybe you have an old crummy mattress that you're just not sleeping well on. There could be tons of factors. Maybe you have some type of sleep disorder that you need to check with your doctor about and see how you can help get that fixed. But that could be a major problem too.
Yeah, I also think consistency helps with the quality. So, there can be that pattern where you stay up too late or you had something that night and you didn't get a lot of sleep. So then you try to make up for it the next night and sleep longer. But then, it's like maybe 5 hours of sleep here and then 9 hours of sleep here and 5, your body's like, what are you doing? And I know certain jobs, especially when we're in the NICU, there's a night shift coming in and, they were working 2 to 3, sometimes 4 or 5 stretches. But especially that was not a consistent shift. And so I think of those people who don't have those consistent sleep patterns. But if you can, and you have control of that, then this would be something to really just think about and hone in on to improve your sex life.
Yeah. And the men and women can have different, can both be impacted by this, specifically, and will have lower sex drive if you're not getting enough sleep. Plain and simple, just because you're going to be too tired to have sex, and you're
it
just
takes energy.
Right, you're not going to be interested. And so, one of the things as we were doing some research for this topic was that I read that there's, studies show that the man's body specifically releases testosterone in the early hours of the morning. That testosterone is created by the body overnight while you're sleeping. So if you're getting less sleep, you're going to have less testosterone created for you or released for you in the morning, which that testosterone is going to be what helps you to have a higher sex drive. The lower levels of testosterone you have in your body as a man, the lower sex drive you're going to have. And, that can lead to other sexual related problems as well. But that was just an interesting fact to me that it's a true correlation between for sleep and sex drive specifically for men. We've all heard the joke of, women saying, "Oh, I'm too tired tonight." But I mean, that's really what it is. It's just creating lack of sleep, or tiredness is going to create a lower sex drive in general for men or for women. But there's actually a physiological related piece of this for men.
Yeah, I think another effect too is like sex often happens in bed where where you sleep.
Yeah.
So your brain is naturally going to then be affected by that because you get in bed and you're tired. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you're going to associate your bed equals sleep, and therefore you can't stay up
Right.
and do anything else in the bed. And so you're more likely to choose sleep over sex, or maybe you even had full intentions on trying to, and then you both just fall asleep. And that can keep being the pattern because you're just never getting caught up and you're exhausted.
Well, and think about the example you gave a few minutes ago about if you fall asleep on the couch. Well, that's going to turn into uninterrupted sleep if you make it up to the bed later. But let's say you fall asleep on the couch just spending time together watching TV, but then you move up to the bedroom and you're both groggy now because you fell asleep on the couch. You're not likely to connect sexually then either because you're both groggy and ready to just hit the bed. Kind of like when you have jet lag from a flight and you're like, as soon as you see the bed, you're already falling asleep. And, once you get, I say upstairs, we have a 2-story house. So once you get to your bedroom, you're less likely, if you've fallen asleep somewhere else briefly, to then engage in sex there too. So, I mean, kind of going along with what you're saying about how that often happens in the bed, and you're going to choose sleep over sex if you're too tired.
You said groggy. I can also get grumpy if I don't get enough sleep, which is...
So can I.
Yeah, which doesn't help us, relationally, not, yet alone physically, but because who wants to have sex when you're, irritated with each other or with life or whatever? You're just...
Who wants to have sex with an irritated person or a grumpy person? It's just not attractive either way.
Lots of fights can just turn into, nonsense because you didn't sleep well that night or something. So lots of effects there. Yeah.
And, on the flip side of this, when you are getting enough sleep and your sex life is improving and getting better, the cool thing is that, as we were kind of doing research on this, the studies show that when you have sex, your body releases hormones that are intended to cause feelings of pleasure. Obviously, I think we would experience, we would realize that, but also relaxation, like chemicals that help, or hormones that help increase relaxation. And therefore, when you feel more relaxed, especially because we just said, oftentimes sex happens in the bed, right? So you have sex, you're in the bed already, you're feeling more relaxed. It's going to make it easier to go to sleep, and getting better quality sleep improves your sex life. But now check this, your sex life improves better quality of sleep, which improves better quality of sex life. And you guys get the idea, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they go hand in hand and can help one another.
So bottom line, what we're trying to say is get more sleep and you'll have more sex.
Yes.
The end.
I mean, if you're, we say that, but it's going to be sometimes hard. Like if you're only getting 4 hours of sleep a night consistently, anyway, maybe you're one of those people that's just, got this mindset of, I don't need much sleep to function. And maybe that's true. Maybe you don't need much sleep to function each day, to go and get your job done each day. But when it comes to that extra energy you need at home for your spouse or your kids or the rest of your family or whatever else you have to do, maybe that energy runs out after work. And so maybe you do actually need more to function in those other areas of life, those what we oftentimes could look at as our extracurriculars, which is our family. Like our work often takes the priority of our energy. And so the extracurriculars would become, our family on the back burner. And if we're not having enough energy for them because we think, 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep a night is enough for me because I can function, we're not taking the whole picture into account. And so if you're like that, you may have a hard time jumping from 4 to 7.
Right.
Because you're cutting 3 hours out of your day. That's a lot of productivity, things that you're getting done that you'd have to cut back. And so you may want to start small. Figure out how you can add an extra 30 minutes in, say no when your streaming platform asks one more episode and shut it off early. There's plenty of things you can do.
Yeah, I think you can hold each other accountable too. Like we're talking with a couple that, if you don't have kids, not to pick on you guys, but I'm just tired and I can't stay up to watch a show. I go to bed sometimes earlier than you do, or he'll watch a show, as a last thing that we do in bed, and I fall asleep to it, But I think that can kind of creep into our marriage if that's like your relaxation and you talked about streaming, so you're binge watching something. But with talking to this couple, it's like, okay, that's great on some nights if you say, hey, these are the nights we're going to do that and this is how we're going to relax together. And then what night or nights are we not going to watch a show or turn it off at this time to then go to bed? And hopefully that leads to sex, but that's just kind of where you can keep each other accountable to an earlier bedtime if you're trying to prioritize sleep as well. Or what, vice versa in the mornings. Because that's the season we're in with the baby of like, who's going to take this shift and who's taking the kids to school and this and that. But just talking about it is a very practical life thing that everybody needs sleep. So speaking up about it and then holding each other accountable to turn off whatever you're doing to go to bed together to connect or just be off for the night.
Yeah, totally. What you're saying about that bedtime, you can hold each other accountable for the purpose. What we're talking about here is hold each other accountable for the purpose of getting better sleep. But if initially you have to entice yourself to get better sleep, kind of like we said a minute ago, by holding each other accountable to an earlier bedtime, and I'm using bedtime in quotations here because maybe that's your sex time that you go up for bed to do that first, to then start associating bed with a good thing rather than as a bad thing, and it helps you fall asleep. And so then it's just starting that cycle backwards, right? A minute ago we said sleep makes a better sex life, which makes a better sleep life, and maybe it's the other way around. Sex start with the sex to increase, better sleep, and then have better sex later.
And another practical tip is to try to shut down screen usage early and engage in conversation instead. And so we've been talking about streaming or a TV show or a movie, but that's also, our phone scrolling. I've been guilty of this, that when we do get into bed to sleep, I'm like, well, my phone's right here. I'll just go on social media or whatever, and that will help me fall asleep. And I experimented with this actually for the past few months. I've tried to, once I get into my room and put my phone down, just fall asleep on my own. And it's hard. I think I'm more tired now, so it's easier, but there's still that habit, like, that I can pick up my phone because my eyes are still open, and I choose not to, and I am getting better sleep. But I did read that this week that like 53% of people use a device within 3 minutes of falling asleep, and then also 3 minutes of waking up. And I thought it'd actually be higher than that percentage, but then when I realized, I'm like, that's still a lot of people.
Well, and that's only within 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, so take it to 5 minutes,
True.
And then you're probably seeing those higher percentages.
And I fall into that because I still am on my phone late. I don't have like a, at dinner time, put it in a box type of thing. But it actually is, because I did it myself. Like, it's hard, but it actually has improved my sleep and just like quality of my day as well in the morning, if that's not my first thing to go to.
Well, think of it just from that last thing. We're getting a little down a rabbit trail here, which is a good rabbit trail, because think of it just from a relational perspective. You just said 3 minutes of falling asleep and within 3 minutes of waking up. So the last thing people are seeing before they go to bed is their screen, and the first thing they're seeing when they wake up is their screen, rather than the last thing you're seeing before you go to bed is your spouse, and the first thing when you wake up is your spouse. Like, flip that on its head and make sure that that is a priority for you, that your spouse is the last thing you see and the first thing you see when you wake up. And I think, like you said, your quality of sleep will improve, and your quality of life and how your attitude that you wake up with in the morning, regardless of almost how much sleep you got, is probably going to be better, because you're not just mindlessly scrolling and getting the ads put in front of you and all that jazz,
Well, yeah, it got my mind going. But now instead what we do, our little rule is, usually we're getting to bed around the same time, but if someone's taking longer to get ready for bed, it's like the last person who gets in bed is the one that's supposed to roll over to the other person and kiss them. We always kiss and say goodnight and I love you. And that's how we end our night. So just talking to your spouse, like I said earlier, keeping them accountable, but talking to your spouse about what bedtime routine.
What's your new bedtime?
And what does that look like, so you can have better sleep and then in turn, hopefully, better sex with your spouse.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in this week. And as always, check us out on social media at Marriage Puzzle. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. We also do marriage coaching, like we mentioned at the top of the episode. So check out our website, marriagepuzzle.com, where you can schedule a free discovery call with actually the two of us, and we will see how we can help you out in your marriage. And as always, we look forward to having you back next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
Bye.